Okay, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, right?
Call this special meeting of the Ohio Valley Sanitary District to order. Call the roll, please, Allison.
Director Quillisi,
Here.
Director Berg,
Here.
Director Ulrich,
Here.
Director Martinson,
Here.
Director Stone,
Here.
and then it looks like Director Curtis and Director Kintosh are not here.
Okay. So move on to item 2, which is seating of newly elected officers. Everybody here that's new has been sworn in except Director Kintosh. So what's your opinion on that? Then should we swear him in when he comes in, or if we conduct business and swear him in after the meeting? You can do it either way. Okay.
It's a re-election, not a new election.
So can he be selected for positions on the board without taking his oath, just assuming that he's going to take it? Yes.
In most places, I think, you serve in your office until you are either reappointed or replaced.
Right.
So that,
I guess with that, we can move on to item 3. Consideration approval of director for 2449. Did we hear anything from Jack as far as he's going to be here or not?
No, I have no 2449 requests.
Okay. Move on to item 4, Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, nation, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you. And there is no additions or amendments because this is a special meeting. 6, public concerns. Do we have anybody online or in the room here that would like to address the board?
Yeah, I'm public. I guess I'm the only public here. So I have a question. On the board rules and regulations, do you have a thing for alternates? But every time I come here, there's somebody missing.
the thing for what?
No, we have no alternate things.
No. So if I want to be on the board, I have to wait until there is an
Election.
election. That happens every 2 years.
4 years.
Members are every 4 years, but they don't all fall the same
No, they,
4 years, right?
four of the odd divisions. 4 odd divisions is,
Got reelected. So there'll be 3 that comes up in 2 years. And the only their way to be a board member on a non-election scenario would be to be appointed if there was a formal vacancy.
So who's?
But since we're elected by district, I think you have
I
to
think
live
I
in
am
the
in
district.
7. Live in District 7. Can I apply in a district?
District.
He's in District 7. So he's not,
The District 7 was just reelected.
he's got 4 years.
Correct.
but you can buy now. Does that answer your questions? Okay.
To answer my question, that means I don't have to worry about applying for board position.
That's the short answer.
Am I muted?
Pressure on. Move on to item 7 and 8, consent items.
Question on. This is in the disbursements, page 18 of the packet, 70740. Smart sites. Never seen that before. I just wondered what they do for us.
I would have to look at the.
No smart sites, no. That is.
I thought it was smart signs.
11, I think.
Made some sense.
Buyout of 1911.
It's for SCADA software, alarming of the SCADA software.
It used
It's
to
a
be,
name I hadn't seen before. Thank you.
Could be just called Win 9/11.
9/11. The purchase.
Okay. Good. You, sir?
Director Byrd.
I'd like to move for approval of items 7 and 8.
Second that.
Motion and second. Anything further from? Roll call, Allison.
Director Martinson.
Yes.
Director Byrd.
Yes.
Director Quillisi.
Yes.
Director Ulrich. Director Stone.
Yes. Now we'll move on to item 9. I will turn it over to Allison to conduct the election of officers and appointments.
We're missing 2 people, but I guess we'll with 5. Your no options become. So we're taking nominations for chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and assistant secretary. Those are our official board positions, so that will serve for 12 months in specific capacities. Chairman being essentially the sort of main point of contact for the general manager outside of a regular or special board meeting or committee. Vice chair being the backup for that to conduct meetings in the absence of the chairman for chairman focused business. Advisory only. Secretary being the person who essentially signs most of the post-meeting paperwork, budget adjustments, et cetera. Assistant secretary being the person who would back that person up in their absence. So that's sort of the general summary of those nominated, and you know what you're signing up for. Looking for nominations for chairman.
Nate. Stone.
Any other nominations, volunteers? You can volunteer to be on that position also. You don't have to be nominated.
Mr. Ulrich, are you? Nominate you. Oh, well. Interesting.
Make it interesting. We won't get a quorum, won't get a majority.
Perfect.
We have an odd number of voters here.
You have to have 4.
Majority, I got it.
40 of those present.
So we can do like names in the hat, or I can just essentially go down and you can just essentially voice your vote if that works. Okay, Director Martinson. Director Berg,
Vote for Mr. Ulrich.
policy,
Vote for Bill.
I got that covered.
is that what you can't vote for yourself? Is that how this works? Okay.
Oh.
Can't?
You can't? Sure.
Oh, they should have.
Abstain from. Okay. So it looks like we have a 2-1 vote for Director Stone to remain as chair.
Can't vote for yourself.
Really, that's the first year I've heard that.
I suppose you could, but I'm assuming you're gonna vote for yourself and he's gonna,
Or vice versa.
or vice versa.
Everybody settled with that. Looking for nominations for vice chairman.
I'll nominate Mr. Ulrich. He was the vice chair last year.
Have any other nominations? Anybody opposed to that nomination? Looking for nominations for secretary.
Would like to. Let's see.
Fast pen.
Yeah.
Testing. That's what the secretary mostly does, the test.
Any other nominations?
Show up to sign it, which it's not good at.
Any other nominations? Anybody opposed to that nomination? Congratulations. Nomination for assistant secretary.
Nominate Lowell.
Second that.
Anybody opposed to that nomination? Congratulations. We don't have to hand the gavel over. This will be easy. Continue on.
Yeah, so I know that normally the new chairman comes in December. We usually look at the committees in December and place everybody in January. Think there's some issues that we're gonna have come up the next that might need to have a committee meeting before our next meeting. So I would like to necessarily assign committees this evening to look over, but if anybody has a committee that they would like to sit on, reach out to me. Around.
Are you planning on announcing the 27th?
Yes.
Send out a reminder email. Contact you.
It's normal. It's just this meeting's in lieu of the December meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for having confidence in me for another year. Without a formal mandate. Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to item 10, construction services contract number 2025-02, change order number.
Thank you, Director and Chair Stone. Before you guys is a construction inspection services contract for a change order in the amount of $30,698. This is for the Burnham Road, and Burnham Road, we did the pipe realigning. Pipe realigning was a contract we let for $937,000. That was the winning contractor. The second contractor was $1.4 million. My point is there was a $462,000 delta there. Part of the delta we looked at when it came to construction inspection services is we being the district, we thought we were going to get away with 8 hours of inspection services. When the contractor got on site, we found out it was more than 10 to 12 hours per day. On top of that, we were slightly short staffed, and instead of having only 3 days a week for the contracting engineer to inspect it, we thought it would be best to have them for 5 days. So, and I hope you can understand that, given that we had a delta of $460 some thousand, thought it was important to make sure that we watched every inspection, right? So before you is that consideration. If you concur, then also includes the approval and authorization for the general manager to go ahead and execute this change order for Phoenix Engineering.
Be entertaining a motion.
Move approval of item 10, A and B.
Questions for staff. All right, Allison. Call over, please.
Director Markinson,
Yes.
Director Byrd,
Yes.
Director Closey,
Yes.
Director Olber, and Chair Stone.
Yes. On to 11. Fiscal year budget income and expense reconciliation budget adjustment number 2025-15.
You want me to put
You want to run with this one?
So this is our annual prior year budget reconciliation. They're the normal as we work through the audit and some of our adjustments and making the numbers available for review. There's a couple of anomalies this year that is important to speak to as far as why there was a budget surplus of approximately $678,000. Two major factors for that were the substantial savings in salaries and benefits, given the number of vacancies the district has had, equated to a savings of approximately $220,000. One of our largest swing items is chemicals. Had less of an issue with supply and demand in some of our chemicals. We also use significantly less of sort of very costly chemicals as we went through the TMDL project and had certain things offline and were adjusting accordingly. So there was a savings in excess of $120,000 in that category. And those are sort of abnormal in expense categories or surpluses in the expense categories that we likely will see next year. In the revenue categories, one of the things that we've seen for 2 years in a row that we will not see next year is an excess in revenue from penalties from DFA. They were online 6 months of last year. Their penalties averaged no less than $30,000 a month. Overages and excess flow concentration measurements. So we won't see that this year at all, as they essentially went out of business in January last year. So that represents 6 months of penalties and overages for DFA that are reflected and greatly contribute and are not budgeted for. So that's what landed us at $678,000 and some change in a budget surplus. A surplus of any kind is a good thing. I wanted to highlight sort of those anomalies so that we can sort of quantify that we did not raise rates haphazardly. Those are anomalies that essentially we were predicted. And so we likely will see that sort of swing, at least in those categories, all the year that we're in. As far as what we're going to do with that surplus, the recommendation essentially is we had some TMDL change orders in lieu of the board one at a time, and in the interest of essentially moving forward. We executed the change orders, completed the project, and to reconcile those change orders at the end of the project, which we've now completed that. Those change orders totaled somewhere $237,932. So I'm recommending that that remain in available cash to balance out those over expenditures from cash in the TMDL project. The remaining portion of recommendation is to transfer that to the collection system reserve. That would be a reserve that is currently underfunded and was heavily utilized for spill response, emergency response, et cetera, and sort of build that reserve up to where it needs to be as we move into budget season and discussing our CIP. So that is staff's recommendation for that budget surplus. If you're in support of that.
Director Pelosi.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that very complete explanation. I assume that when DFA went out of business in January, they just switched over to 75% on their service charges for 450 units or whatever it is.
That is correct.
And we don't have any idea yet. They choose to cut back on that 50 number.
It's a continuous conversation. I will say that, that carrying the cost at 75% of 450 capacity units has been challenging for them, admittedly. So we have some delayed payment of invoices for a significant period of time. Dennis has been involved in. They are now relatively current with their account. They get mentioned in our audit, not as a negative, but just as something that was a sort of a delayed revenue source for the district.
More seriously about selling back some of those units, I suspect.
I think there's probably serious conversations about that facility as a whole. We have not been involved in those, but I have talked to Pepsi a couple of times on what that looks like to reduce those carrying costs. So they do know that the option for them to reduce those carrying costs with us is to sell those back or a portion of them back. They just have very little value. And should they choose to use that facility for something similar to that of DFA, the expense would be
cheap units. Yeah.
Right. Great to purchase them back from.
Okay. Second, and this is on page 33 with your recommendation. We have a budget surplus. No, we want to spend part of it on collection system, part of it on treatment plant. The treatment plant portion is going to kind of disappear.
It does. It actually.
It's one extra journal entry. Think, move that 237,000 to replacement reserve, and then move it back to cash when we spend it.
That is correct. Well, we've already spent it, and that's really the reality of it because that project is closed. This is a paper reconciliation.
Okay.
So essentially the $237,000 was overspent in available cash. Normally what we would have done is we would have come back to the board and a budget adjustment for the extra $237,932, and it would have came out of the same fund the original contract came out of, which was the treatment plant replacement reserve. Those change orders came very rapidly at the end. It would have delayed the project to go through sort of this bureaucratic process, if you will, to sort of just do those sort of transfers. And knowing that this budget reconciliation was going to have a surplus and was about to be presented, it just made more sense to save that one journal entry and then loop from treatment plant replacement reserve to available cash, knowing that you were going to essentially have this in
Already
available
spent it.
cash. It really made sense to just essentially leave it there because that's where it would have been transferred to for these expenses as a whole.
My only concern was that we lose track of where the money went because it never left available cash.
Correct. It's really, as far as accounting is concerned, it's really a paperwork thing. And it will work out as far as we will account for every dollar of the project expense with the auditor. So that won't get lost in translation.
Okay. I had a couple of questions on page 36. You had a couple of tables, investment income budget and other income budget. And I could not, I'm sorry, it seemed like it should have been simple arithmetic, but I could not make it work. On the first one, the investment income budget, the first table on that page, it shows the difference between the adopted budget, the actual received was about $7,000.
So
225 to 198, actual received. Over here, it says the general fund deficit was 39,000 and change.
well,
I
not,
don't understand. Maybe I'm comparing apples and oranges here. I don't know.
yeah, and that's a challenge sometimes with the way that this is probably not that clear. Only a portion of this revenue is applied to the general fund, and only the amount that goes to the general fund is really a income source. Otherwise, it sits in those respective reserves, and the interest is applied based on the balance of those reserves. It's something we never see. It just builds up those balances, and so essentially, 53,712 was what was budgeted to the
Okay,
general
and
fund.
the difference between 53 and
Correct.
14 is the 39.
That is correct.
Second table, I don't know where I was going with that. It says the general fund surplus was 21,000, but I don't see that. I guess that's the difference between budgeted general fund, actual to general fund. What does that have to do with anything, with the deficit in the first table? Nothing?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Okay. So we had then about 18,000 deficit in the general fund. The difference between those two.
Are you comparing table 1 and table 2?
Yeah,
They don't, table 1 and table 2 don't have anything to do with each other.
that doesn't out to,
Well, I guess
the
if you're
general
talking
fund
about
surplus.
actual dollars as a whole, yes, they do. Yes, as far as general fund revenue is concerned, but the two tables don't really relate to each other line item for line item, if that makes sense.
you can see
sum
the
of them
account numbers are
relate
different.
to each other if you add them.
Was, you know, and them expenses, but
It's interest income. Correct.
Okay.
kind of different. Or apples and oranges. Question. For a reference to the election system,
It's not the collection system replacement reserve. It's not a deficit. I would say it's underfunded, which that will be a larger conversation to be determined.
Right.
Yes, we're reviewing the CIP right now for a collection system. And that will be a large part of the budget conversation is what that reserve sort of needs to be loaded with, if you will. Sort of meet that CIP goal and sort of how we're going to get there. It'll be important for a conversation as we move it because the majority of the funds go into that essentially contribution via the budget.
Further.
I guess along these lines, talked about having the investment come in sometime here early this year. Are we at a time to do that yet, or do we need to?
Yes, so we're in communication. They are ready. We're waiting for the new committees to be selected, so that the conversation can continue with the new finance committee. Yes, we've been in contact
Certainly
with.
do that in February.
Correct. And Richard Babbitt has already been earmarked to present in February in anticipation of that committee being set.
Thank you.
Anything further from? In a second.
I'll move for approval of item 11.
In a second, Allison, call roll, please.
Director Martinson,
Yes.
Director Berg,
Yes.
Director Quillisi,
Yes.
Director Ulrich, and Chair Stone.
Yes. Okay, we'll be moving into item 12 now with the session. With labor negotiations.
We can do the others further. That last or matter? It doesn't matter to me, but
you go ahead and do 13 through 15 first and then come back to that.
is that acceptable?
That,
I don't mean to throw a wrench
you're
in it.
not displacing the audience for the rest of the.
That's fine. So is there anything we'd like to hold off for 13, 14, and 15?
I have some questions on 15. Thank you. Page 62. Yes. The Tico Road Architectural Review and Update. It says there code updates will be required. Are we talking about updates to a code or updates to the building of current building standards code?
We're talking ADA updates.
So it's updates to the building.
Yes.
Forced by the code. All right. I thought that was the case, but code updates. Clear. Page 68. By the way, another excellent operational report from folks out there, and I thank you for it. Page 68, violations of district code. This is a standard phrase, but it says, for example, in unpermitted connection data, 7 of the 24 violations are in administrative citation status. I wonder if you could just refresh me on what administrative citation status means.
Sure. So our district code states that when somebody's in administrative status, it's generally administrative citation status. First violation is $100 a day for 10 days, up to $1,000. Second violation of the same kind is $200 a day for up to $2,000, so total of 10 days. So those 7 of 24 are in somewhere those two definitions.
We're in that up to
Correct.
3,000 fines or liens.
It's either 2,000 or 1,000 respectively. And so essentially they're either still accumulating up to $1,000 or $2,000, depending on the second violation of the same kind, or they have reached the maximum. And we actually send those dentists in batches to be notified that they're likely going to be leveraged on tax roll for the outstanding debt that they owe the district. The goal for some of these, the reality is the $1,000 or the $2,000 is really essentially doesn't solve the problem, which is not beneficial to the district. So essentially we continue to try to communicate with them regardless to resolve it. Eventually when they resolve their admin citations, but really sending it to dentists and leaning on tax roll doesn't solve the ultimate problem. And sort of the burden on staff time of enforcement. We've done really well. It's the admin citation route, but it is a tool to get long-time non-responders to respond.
Sometimes the only way.
And so we've been pretty successful with it. We only have, like I said, a handful are complete non-responders, and those will refer to Dennis. More form.
A couple of questions on page 69. The first one, I guess, is probably for Bradshaw here. Item 4, did anticipated finishing the safety training last month. I'm just wondering if that happened.
Oh, that's me. Still reviewing it. To my knowledge, we completely our training goal by December 31st. If there are any that are deficient, it will be something very minimal of non-significance as far as training is concerned. So there weren't any major trainings. We have a lot of training that we think is the best practice for staff. So it'd be if somebody was absent or on leave or something to that effect where they got a little bit behind on their training. We have staff that are at maximum capacity because of the vacancy. And so we've provided them a little bit of grace on some of the training that is annual and repetitive. But to my knowledge, staff really made a push towards the end, especially in a lot of the departments as a group, to sort of knock out their training. Didn't sort of compound coming into 2025. So I would be very surprised if we are behind at all based on the last time that I looked at it prior to December 1st. Kudos to staff for that.
Item 5, hearing the meeting, general manager's comments or whatever about the status of the recruiting for vacancies or.
Yeah, I can speak to that now if you want.
Great.
We have an official start date for our engineering technician. That person will be starting first official day in the office will be January 21st, January 20th being a holiday. And so we're very, very excited about that. Our other 3 candidates have completed all of their pre-employment requirements with the exception of fitness for duty. And we are waiting for personnel with our occupational therapy that we use to coordinate schedules with those candidates to complete that final employment requirement. And that's actually an actual physical test where they walk the job and the equipment on site. And that is, we hope that will happen next week. And then we'll be authorized to give notice to current employer and we'll get official start dates for those. So we're super excited. We'll hopefully this has worked out where I think everybody is going to start sort of staggered based on travel plans and increased notice to employees, et cetera, that they've expressed to us. And so on board of January 20th to probably March 1st is probably staggered through that period of time.
In March, we should have all the vacancies filled.
Yes. And we'll be excited. We'll invite them to a board meeting when they're all here and introduce.
Sure.
Anything further on 13, 14, or 15? 16, we didn't have any committee meetings, so I'm assuming there's no committee report. I don't think anybody's been to any meetings or seminars this last month. Yes. Brings to 19, the board member comment, general manager comment. Scott had a few things he wanted to.
Yeah, I've got some great news. So on December 19th, received a nice present from FEMA. It was a reimbursement of $656,800. So yeah, a little bit came in there. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, in fact, people were happy that I came in.
Yes, exactly. We have that.
Went right back out again.
It did. Allison was very happy for an afternoon. It was, yeah, it was awesome. We fired up the denitrification filters. Associated with those denitrification filters, we encountered some foaming. And I'm going to pass out a couple pics for everybody. So when I say foaming, it sounds somewhat ominous, and I can assure you it's not. So there's a couple things that can cause foaming. Some of it can be MBAS. It's a chemical compound that's found in soaps and detergents. We did a bunch of analysis and we found out that our plant is removing about 100 times what comes in. It doesn't look like it's that. Foaming can also be caused from CTOS. CTOS is this non-ionized, it's a chemical surfactant. It's usually used in industry. It really doesn't occur here in our treatment plant. And our plant is treating that at about 10% or 10 times reduction. So it's not that. So where we're at this point, we've reached out to the carbon-based company called Micro C. Micro C provides glycerin that we feed the carbon source. It's not the Micro C. We've taken the Micro C offline. We're at the point where we're now working with Stantec and Parkston. So we're looking at their PhDs, their R&D teams, and their engineers to figure out what's going on. It's so if you look at some of the pictures, I'll wait for them all to get around so you can explain the pictures. So we don't know what it is the answer. We're at the point now where the engineers and the designers are working with us. We've made all of our necessary notifications to the regional board. The regional board hasn't commented on it, and that's where we're at. So I'm expecting some more work from Stantec and Parks as we get through this issue and try to figure out what's going on. So it's a complex microbiological process. If I had to guess, I think it is probably a protein of some sort that is coming off from something that is growing in the sand filters. That's what my feeling is. So right, in essence, it would be no different than when you see sea foam at the beach. That's what that is. Sea foam at the beach is often proteins that come off of algae. It could be proteins that come off of any spores that are out there. And it's a surfactant that causes foam. So if you look at the pictures, the first picture you see that is in it's either Johnson grass or I can't really tell the two. That's where our water comes into the river. So that is right at our effluent. You don't see any foam there. What you can't see is after this picture, it kind of cascades down a series of rock stones. And if you look at the second picture, if you look closely, you can see what looks like little spittles of foam on the surface of the water. That's what we're seeing. We're on it. Need you guys to know, but the solution at this point.
Is this something that causes a problem for the board? Regional Water Quality Control Board?
Yes and no. So our permit is specific that says that we shall not alter the aesthetics of the river. And so if this foam on the surface is an aesthetic of the river, then it would be there. If it's not, then it's not a problem. Right. But it's not quantifiable. So and we've looked at all the analysis, everything. So it's nothing that's prohibited from our discharge permit. It's non-quantifiable. It's not a nuisance. It's not causing a detriment to safety to fish. Right. We're not seeing that. So
It's an aesthetics problem.
aesthetics issue.
So when this comes out and starts foaming like this, how far down does it go all the way to the estuary, or does it fall out at some point?
It has fallen out. I don't know exactly how far we have. I understand we have 5 sampling stations downstream and is not hitting the last one. How far down that is, I don't know.
Sampling station can pick out the foam.
When I say sampling station, it's a location where we actually sample. So I probably, it's not so much as a sampling station as it's a location where someone walks periodically to the river to inspect and to conduct their analysis and their sampling. So a sampling station makes it sound like it's super analytical. It's a sampling point. Yeah, it's a sampling point, right? Yeah, an observation point.
Where is that last sampling point going to? Say, Stanley.
I don't know. Crash, are you on?
Muted if you speak.
I can get back to you with that.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
You got it.
Need to know if it's a problem.
Kind of doubling on what a little bit, excuse me, of what Allison was talking about. I want to talk a little bit about vehicle safety. So some of the crews have been online safety. The collection system crews completed that in December. We have an opportunity this year that I and frankly a lot of the staff are excited about. So in March, once the last new onboarding people come on board, we have an opportunity to have an all-hands defensive driver training with a CHP. And so it usually is given to the commercial drivers. And this year, we're going to have it set up so that anyone who wants to attend, that's works for the district, can attend this defensive driving class. And Israel's attended it. It's actually a highly.
Yeah, it's a CHP officer and I'm a CHP, like the commercial inspections officers that come over here. It's more than just DOT. It actually teaches you what you're seeing out there, what they're seeing, meaning like more texting, more people distracted. So a little bit gruesome. I don't know if you guys remember during high school, there was a driver's ed video called Red Asphalt. It's a little bit like that. So, but it's a really, really good class that makes you think like, man,
Feel better drive.
yes, it really opens your eyes once you the class. So that would be in March, and we do the class every 2 years. So it's part of our training.
Thanks, Israel.
And I have one last little report to give on the septic to sewer grant applications. So the state has received and accepted the applications for both Trusty Lane and North Rice Road. It is on hold pending availability of funds at the state. They have also gotten back to me today. They responded back regarding Casita Springs. And we're going to ask for a resubmittal of that application. Their idea being is if they break Casita Springs up into an east and a west using the Highway 133, Highway 33 as the bifurcation line, it does a few things. One is it provides some more funding for the project because they have some ceilings that get met, but now you have 2 floors, right? You have 2 floors versus 1. And I do think, and I've talked to the regulators, I do think that working with Caltrans is going to slow down that one portion that is on the east side of the 33. And I don't know if it would, if they do come through with funding, it seems like a disservice to the people that are on the west side to not really be able to get the benefit. And so the state and I talked about it and they agreed. And so I'm gonna be submitting that. There's an update there.
There's already some sewer service.
There is. Yeah, there is some at the very
Extension.
extensions. That's correct. Yeah, that's it for my general manager comments.
Explain a bit more about the statistics in item 8. Injuries, lost time injury. I guess I didn't realize we had lost time injuries. When did those occur?
Let's see, those were both relatively recent. So would be December 6th and
0 calendar days since lost time.
not the case now, but you'll get an update at the January 27th. There's some lost time from December 6th injury. The other one was in August. Lost time.
What was the injury?
Can't say. Protected information.
Explain accidents, scenario, explain the injuries to the individual.
I can generally say that, they're generally strain of some sort, slip and fall of some sort. Those are generally common. Likely one of those two things.
What are we doing about it? When did it occur? You don't need to answer, Allison. I want Scott to answer this.
I don't know why you got hurt.
Why?
It was a slip or a trip or a fall. I do know that occurred. The details of what it was over, things like that, I do not know.
We don't know if we had hoses in the walkway or if there was ice on the road or it's on the road or. So I'm really big on this accident. So I don't want to see this again ever. Especially a lost time accident. So I like this, especially learning that we don't even know what happened. So I'm sure you're telling me more than you know, but my knowledge, did we have any accidents lost time last year? in the last 4 years.
Yeah, no, we do.
So I didn't.
This calendar year, we definitely had an accident, 0 lost time. And I'm aware of what happened in these accidents, so I don't want it diluted that I don't know what happened, because I most definitely do.
No, you can't tell me the individual health issues, but you can tell me what happened. Individual got crushed by a truck. I mean, you can tell me that stuff. You have to tell me broke this bone or that bone.
No, neither of the most recent ones were attributed to any negligence on behalf of the district or the employees. Purely accident based on the physical demands of the job and the areas in which they have to access some of the district facilities.
So again, what have we done about it?
Of
To
it.
make sure that doesn't happen again.
We have,
Is it training? Do we need facilities around?
so
I'm putting you on the spot. What I do want to hear next time is what have we done about that stuff. Song and a dance now doesn't help me. I know that we're not going to have this happen again. Please, next time.
Answer me this, are we still doing our stretching stuff in the morning, or is that kind of gone away?
that's what I was actually about to say is that the district actually takes quite a few condition precautions, and sort of conditioning measures, that are above and beyond, to help condition, these, for physical demands of their job. And so sometimes accidents happen. I mean, your body mechanics sometimes betray you. I mean, that's just sort of the reality of the
Accept-
situation.
Believe it for a minute.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying is,
We often have that attitude in businesses that, these things happen and zero is what needs to happen. If people can't do their job, then we need to fix it so they can or get someone else. We don't need accidents. These things can end up costing millions and it's just silly. So let's just make sure it doesn't happen again. Again, where I come from, 0 accident is the standard. These things happen. I don't like to think for my family, oh, these things happen. My son's going to die in a car wreck. I don't, need to think that way. These are minor compared to, but it's the same thing. Accidents don't need to happen. If an accident is preventable. And from it, that's great. If we say, I don't know what happened, I don't know. That doesn't make me happy. Just make sure we know what happened and figure out what needs to be done about it. And if something's already been done about it, great. I just want to know.
Excellent. Any comments? Hearing none. That we will move on to item 12, session. Labor negotiators, government code section 5495.
This will be regarding, employees, the general manager Scott Straw,
good to see you.
being afterwards in open session.
Consider.
thanks, Israel.
Good day.
Good night.
We're back in session. All right, well, we're going to come back from closed session, back into open session at 7:35 with nothing to report. And with that, adjourned at 7:36.